Yesterday I sent my in-laws a cute picture of my baby holding a piece of pizza crust. My parents thought it was adorable. My mother-in-law said nothing. Today she came over and finally brought it up. Not with a smile but with judgment. First she warned me about sodium, then she claimed gluten was dangerous for babies. When I calmly explained the science, she laughed in my face and told me, "Go to college first before you talk about food." In my own house I was mocked and dismissed. That moment changed everything. Would you let her keep visiting after that? Before all this happened, my life looked pretty normal, or at least I thought it did. My husband and I had fallen into a routine with our 6-month-old son. He was starting to laugh, reach for things, even babble like he had his own language. Every day felt like discovering a new piece of his personality. Part of that routine included occasional visits from my mother-in-law. She lived close enough to drop by once or twice a week, and I allowed it because truthfully I wanted her to feel connected. My own parents were supportive and low drama, so in my head I told myself, she deserves that bond too. I even rationalized it as giving myself a break. She'd watch him while I folded laundry or cleaned the kitchen. On the surface it looked like a win-win. But beneath the surface, there were already warning signs. She had strong opinions about food, and by strong I mean borderline obsessive. She followed every Instagram health guru, believed that vegetables were secretly toxic, and that carbs were practically poison. She would send me videos of babies supposedly thriving on meat-only diets. I laughed it off at first. I figured it's her thing as long as she doesn't push it on us. But deep down a part of me felt uneasy. That unease turned into irritation the day I sent out a family photo. It was nothing dramatic. Just my baby holding a soft pizza crust, gnawing on it with toothless enthusiasm. My parents thought it was adorable. They texted back little hearts and laughing emojis. But my mother-in-law? Silence. I noticed but brushed it off. Maybe she's busy, I told myself. The next day she came over. And the first words out of her mouth weren't "Hi" or "How's the baby?" It was, "Wow, you introduced a whole new food category. I'd be careful." Her tone wasn't kind or curious. It was sharp like a warning. Still I agreed politely. "You're right. Because of the sodium, I probably won't do it again." I thought that would end the conversation. It didn't. She doubled down. "It's not just sodium, it's gluten. Babies can't digest starch." I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice calm. Actually, at 6 months, babies start to develop the enzyme that breaks down starch. That's when it happened. She laughed. Not a kind laugh, not even a nervous one. A dismissive, mocking laugh. "Why don't you go to college first and learn about nutrition? Go to school before you talk about how food works." The words hit me harder than I expected. She knew I never got to finish college because of my pregnancy. And here she was throwing it in my face in my own living room. I looked straight at her and said, "That was rude." The silence that followed was deafening. Everything was about to change. The day felt ordinary at first. My baby was napping when my mother-in-law arrived, carrying that overly cheerful smile she always wore when stepping into my house. I told myself it was fine. She was just here to spend time with her grandson while I caught up on chores. Nothing more. But the moment I handed him over, I felt a shift. Her eyes darted to the kitchen counter where my phone lay. I'd left it open on the photo I had sent the day before. My son clutching that tiny piece of pizza crust, looking like he had just discovered treasure. "So," she said, adjusting the baby on her lap, "I saw the picture. You introduced a whole new food category." Her tone wasn't light or playful. It was a warning. I forced a smile. "You're right. Because of the sodium, I probably won't do that again." That should have ended it. Instead she leaned forward, her voice dropping into that condescending pitch she saved just for me. "It's not just sodium. Gluten isn't safe either. Babies can't break down starch." My heart started to race, but I tried to stay calm. I'd read about this. I'd researched endlessly because I cared. "Actually," I said gently, "at 6 months they begin producing the enzyme that helps with starch." Her response wasn't a debate. It was laughter. A sharp, mocking laugh that cut straight through me. "Why don't you go to college first before you start telling me how food works?" For a second I couldn't breathe. She knew I never finished college. Pregnancy forced me to stop. She knew it was sensitive. And now she was weaponizing it in my own living room while holding my baby. The The words spilled out before I could stop them. That was rude. She froze for a moment, clearly not expecting me to confront her. Then she smirked, as if dismissing my feelings altogether. I just think you should be more careful. I read a lot too, you know. The silence that followed was thick, almost unbearable. My baby squirmed in her arms, restless, sensing the tension that even he couldn't escape. In that instant, I realized this wasn't about food. It was about control, about her needing to undermine me as a mother in my own home. And as I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, I had no idea this was only the beginning of a much bigger fight. I thought it was just one argument, but soon it would spiral into something far darker. After she left that day, I told myself not to overthink it. People say stupid things in the heat of the moment. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe she didn't even realize how cruel her words sounded. I wanted to believe that. But then the text started. That evening my phone buzzed with a link to a 2-hour video. Why baby food is poison. No explanation, no context, just the link. I didn't reply. An hour later another message came through. A screenshot from some influencer ranting about how bread destroys infant guts. This time she added a note. See? I'm not making it up. I felt my stomach knot. She wasn't letting it go. Over the next week it only got worse. Every time she visited, she'd drop little comments, framed as concerns. If my baby reached for a banana, she'd mutter, "Too much sugar for someone so small." If he touched the play mat, she'd sigh, "Plastic chemicals everywhere." She even side-eyed the bottle of formula on the counter once and whispered, "If you knew what's really in there." First, I tried to stay polite. I'd nod, redirect the conversation, remind myself she was family. But with every remark, something inside me tightened. It wasn't advice. It wasn't care. It was judgment layered with superiority. One afternoon she came over unannounced. I had barely opened the door when she brushed past me, carrying a small bag. "I brought something better for him," she said, pulling out a jar of pureed beef she claimed was from a special source. I froze. "You don't get to decide what my son eats," I told her. My voice was firmer than I expected. She blinked, feigning innocence. "I'm just trying to help. You clearly don't have all the information." That line, "you don't have all the information," echoed in my head long after she left. It wasn't just a disagreement. It was a pattern. She was planting seeds of doubt, trying to make me question myself, trying to make others question me too. My husband noticed the tension, but every time I brought it up, he shrugged. "She just cares in her own way," he'd say. "Don't take it so personally." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one being laughed at, dismissed, and undermined. I didn't realize it yet, but her comments weren't staying within our four walls. She was starting to share them elsewhere. And the first time I heard what she had told other relatives, my blood ran cold. This wasn't just criticism anymore, it was character assassination. The truth came to me sideways like most ugly secrets do. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was on a call with my sister-in-law about something completely different. A family gathering coming up. We were chatting about outfits when she suddenly paused and said, "Hey, are you really feeding him pizza now?" The way she said it made my heart drop. "Excuse me." She hesitated. "Mom mentioned you're giving him all sorts of things he shouldn't have. Bread, fruit, even processed stuff. She said she's worried you don't really know what you're doing." My throat went dry. I gripped the phone tighter, heat rising in my chest. That mocking laugh from a few days earlier replayed in my head. Not only was she belittling me to my face, she was spreading it behind my back. "I gave him a pizza crust one time," I snapped. "One time. And my parents thought it was cute. There's no all sorts of things." But even as I said it, I knew the damage was done. Once someone like her plants a seed of doubt, it grows fast. Later that evening, I checked my messages again. More links, more fear-mongering videos. One even titled, "How Young Mothers Destroy Their Babies Without Realizing It." She sent it with a single comment. "Don't let this be you." My hands actually trembled as I read it. It wasn't advice. It was an accusation. That night, while I was rocking my baby to sleep, the weight of it hit me. She was trying to rewrite the story of who I was, not just to me but to everyone around us. To my in-laws, I wasn't a mother doing her best. I was reckless, uninformed, not educated enough. The cruelest part? She used the one thing she knew would cut deepest. my unfinished college degree. She knew I carried shame about it, that I had sacrificed education to raise my child. And now she wielded it like a weapon, painting me as incompetent, unqualified, unworthy. I thought back to the moment I told her that was rude. She hadn't flinched. She'd smirked. Because this wasn't just about food. It was about power. She didn't want to share the title of authority over my child. And as I laid my baby down in his crib, I realized something that chilled me. If I didn't set boundaries soon, she wasn't just going to undermine me. She was going to erase me. I wish I could say things calmed down after that phone call with my sister-in-law. But they didn't. They escalated. Within days, it became clear that my mother-in-law wasn't just criticizing me privately. She was actively recruiting allies. At a family dinner, my husband's aunt made a casual remark that stopped me cold. You know, some babies don't tolerate gluten until they're much older. You might want to be careful. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. She said it with the exact same phrasing my mother-in-law had used. That wasn't coincidence. That was a script. When we got home, I asked my husband directly, "Has your mom been saying things to the family about how I feed our son?" He sighed, rubbed his temples and muttered, "She just worries. Don't take it so hard." But that wasn't an answer. That was avoidance. And avoidance only made me angrier. Do you realize how this makes me look? Like I don't even know how to feed my own child. His silence told me enough. He knew. He just didn't want to confront her. The next blow came through social media. I was scrolling absent-mindedly when I saw a post she had shared. A long rant about uninformed young mothers who follow trends instead of science. It didn't name me, but the comments under it, heart emojis from relatives, clapping hands from family friends, made my skin crawl. I stared at the screen, pulse racing as the realization sank in. She wasn't just undermining me in family circles. She was shaping a public narrative. To anyone who knew us, the message was clear. She's talking about her daughter-in-law. That night, I confronted her directly. I called and said, "If you have something to say about me, say it to my face. Don't hide behind posts or whispers." Her voice was calm, almost smug. "I only share information. If you feel guilty, maybe ask yourself why." That line, "maybe ask yourself why," hit like a knife. She wasn't just questioning my decisions. She was questioning my identity as a mother. I hung up shaking. For the first time, I considered cutting her visits altogether. But before I could make that decision, something happened that forced my hand. Because the next time she came over, she didn't just bring her opinions. She brought food. And she tried to feed it to my baby without asking me first. That was the moment everything snapped. When she tried to slip that jar of special beef puree into my baby's mouth, I felt something inside me snap. I grabbed the spoon midair and said firmly, "No, you don't get to decide what he eats." For a moment she looked genuinely shocked. Then her face softened, as if she'd realized she'd crossed a line. "You're right," she murmured. "I'm sorry. I just get carried away because I care so much." The apology sounded sincere. And for a brief moment I wanted to believe her. I wanted peace, for myself, for my baby, even for my husband, who looked exhausted by the constant tension. So I gave her another chance. I set clear rules. No surprise food, no lectures, no passive-aggressive texts. If you want to be in his life, I told her, you have to respect my boundaries. She nodded, smiled, even hugged me before leaving. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe this would finally turn a corner. The next few visits were calm. Too calm. She played with the baby, asked polite questions, didn't mention food once. I started to think I had overreacted, that maybe things really could go back to normal. But then small cracks appeared. One afternoon, she watched me mash up avocado and rice for lunch. "Interesting choice," she said lightly, almost playfully. "I've read some babies choke on rice if moms don't prepare it right." She smiled as if it were casual conversation. Another time, when I gave my son a slice of pear to gum on, she tilted her head. "Huh, I thought pears were high in sugar. But hey, you probably know better." It was subtle. Just enough to sound harmless if repeated, but sharp enough that I felt the sting. She hadn't changed. She'd only shifted tactics. The final straw came during a family barbecue. She sat across the table, surrounded by relatives, and when someone asked how the baby was eating these days, she chuckled and said, Well, I let his mom experiment however she wants. I guess she knows best. Though sometimes I wonder if it's safe. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to humiliate me. Enough to undo every fragile piece of peace I had tried to build. In that moment, I realized her apology had never been about respect. It had been a strategy, a way to lower my guard before taking another shot. And this time I wasn't going to let it slide. Because the next words out of my mouth shocked the entire table into silence. The words flew out of me before I could stop them. That's enough. Stop acting like I don't know how to feed my own child. The table went silent. Forks hovered midair. My husband froze, eyes darting between me and his mother. And my mother-in-law? She smirked as if she'd been waiting for me to explode. Oh honey, she said sweetly. No one's attacking you. We're just concerned. I leaned forward. Concern is asking questions. Concern is offering help. What you've been doing is undermining me, making me look like I'm reckless. You've been spreading it around the family, posting about it online. Don't pretend this is care. Her smile faltered, but only for a second. Then she went on the offensive. If you're so confident, why does everything I say bother you so much? Maybe because deep down, you know you're in over your head. A murmur ran around the table. My cheeks burned. I could feel every pair of eyes on me weighing her words against mine. My husband opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. This was between her and me now. You don't get to weaponize my education, I said, voice shaking but steady. Yes, I didn't finish college. I chose to raise my son. That doesn't make me stupid. That doesn't make me unfit. And it sure as hell doesn't give you the right to dismiss me in my own house. Her expression hardened. I only ever wanted what's best for him. If you can't handle advice, maybe you're not ready to be a mother. Gasps circled the table. My husband finally spoke up, voice sharp. Mom, enough. But she wasn't finished. You think love is enough? Babies need science, education, structure. And you? She jabbed a finger at me. You're too emotional to see that. My hands trembled under the table. I wanted to scream, cry, throw her out right then and there. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, if you truly believe that, then maybe you shouldn't be around us at all. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. My baby sitting on my lap let out a soft coo. The only sound in the room. My mother-in-law's face went pale. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Because when she finally spoke again, her words threatened to tear the family apart. Her silence at the table lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then she straightened her back, smoothed her blouse, and delivered the line that shattered the illusion of family unity. If you don't want me around, fine. But don't expect me to sit quietly while you endanger my grandson. The words hit like a slap. Gasps broke out again. My husband's fork clattered onto his plate. I could see relatives shifting uncomfortably in their seats, torn between the drama unfolding and the food cooling in front of them. I stared at her, pulse pounding. In danger? That's what you call me feeding my son fruit and bread? Endangering him. She didn't flinch. Yes, because you don't know better. You never finished school. And you're making decisions you're not qualified to make. Someone has to step in. The fury that had been simmering for weeks erupted. I stood up, my chair screeching against the floor. No. What someone has to do is respect that I am his mother. Not you. Not your Instagram gurus. Me. I'm the one here at 3 a.m. when he's crying. I'm the one who researches, plans, and loves him every single day. You don't get to erase that because it makes you feel powerful. Her lips tightened, but I pressed on. You think you're helping? All you've done is humiliate me, question me, and spread lies. You don't get to walk into my house, laugh in my face, and still expect access to my child. That ends now. The room went dead silent. Even the baby, sensing the energy, sat quietly against my chest. Finally, my husband stood up too. His voice was low but firm. Mom, she's right. This has gone too far. If you can't respect her, you can't be around us. Period. That was the breaking point. My mother-in-law's face twisted. First in disbelief, then in anger. So you're choosing her over me? She hissed. No, he said calmly. I'm choosing my wife and my son. The family I built. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse, her chair toppling backward. "You'll regret this. Both of you." Then she stormed out, the front door slamming so hard the windows rattled. For a long time nobody spoke. My hands were still trembling, but underneath the adrenaline was something else. Relief. For the first time the power balance had shifted. The battle wasn't just about food anymore. It had been about respect, authority, and control. And in that moment, standing beside my husband with our baby in my arms, I knew I had reclaimed all three. But even then, I didn't realize how different life would look once she was truly gone from our daily lives. After that night, everything changed. My mother-in-law didn't come over the next day, or the day after that. The flood of links and articles stopped. For the first time in months, my phone was quiet. The silence felt strange at first, almost eerie, but then I realized it was peace. When she did eventually reach out, it wasn't to apologize. It was to justify herself. A long text full of "I only care, and one day you'll thank me." I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because by then the decision was already made. No more unsupervised visits, no more undermining, no more control. It wasn't easy. Some relatives thought I was being dramatic. Others stayed neutral. But slowly, people began to notice that without her constant interference, things in our home felt lighter. My husband and I argued less. Our son thrived. And I started to remember what it felt like to trust myself again. That was the real victory. Not humiliating her. Not shutting her down in front of everyone. But reclaiming my confidence as a mother. She could believe whatever she wanted about nutrition, science, or me. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that my baby was healthy, happy, and loved. Sometimes winning doesn't look like revenge. It looks like boundaries. And boundaries, once set, don't have to be defended every day. They defend themselves. So tell me, if someone in your family mocked you, dismissed you, and tried to control how you raised your child, would you cut them off, or keep trying to make peace?